Hello, I am the SideQuest Gamer, and for this episode, I will be reviewing The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color. The question is, how good of a game is it itself, and how good of a game is it in the convoluted timeline that is the Legend of Zelda series? Well, let's roll the footage and find out. Note that this is the 1998 DX version of Link's Awakening, but with the exception of color and an optional 9th dungeon, it's not any different except that stealing from the owner of the store will prevent you from getting the perfect run ending, even if you never die in the game. But other than that, there's nothing different. Link's Awakening began as a side project for the Nintendo Game Boy using one of the very first Game Boy developmental kits. The programmers experimented with it for hours and made a Zelda-like adventure. After the release of the successful Super Nintendo game The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past in 1991, director Takashi Tezuka asked to create a handheld Zelda title for the Game Boy. It was originally meant to be a spin-off, and upon its release was regarded mainly as a side story in the Zelda series. It was later revealed that Link's Awakening was a sequel of sorts to A Link to the Past, but nothing in the game would hint at that, with the exception of the Triforce on Link's hand being mentioned at the beginning of the game, and the final boss will resemble enemies fought in A Link to the Past. Many of the same elements of A Link to the Past return, like teleportation around the map, and some bosses return like the dreaded Moldor. Warning, it's even more annoying in this game, but takes less hits to kill, so it sorts of balances out. There are, however, many new things in this game than in the previous 3 entries that didn't quite give a proper introduction. Side quests. While side quests were introduced in the first game where you had to deliver a letter to the old lady so she will sell life potions, but that was basic. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, had you rescue all sorts of items and even a child, but that was mandatory in order to get a spell. It's possible to complete those dungeons without the spells, but as Zelda 2 being the hardest game in the series, you needed the spells. And I mean you needed those spells more than a 19-year-old kid living in his parents' house needs a job. A Link to the Past had some side quests like transporting a box to a lockpicker who will open it up and give you the bottle that was inside. But that was technically the first Zelda with side quests, but Link's Awakening introduced the first complex side quests. Like the item exchange, where you get an item, trade it with someone for another item, and it continues until you get the ultimate item that will make your quest a lot easier. Another new aspect of the Zelda series in this game is NPC character development. In the beginning, the main character Link is washed up ashore after being shipwrecked, and is rescued by a girl named Marin. She takes the unconscious Link back to her father Terran, and Link awakens, and she tells him how she wished she turned into a seagull so she can explore beyond the island. So you collect your shield and sword and encounter some of the more hostile island inhabitants like Octoroks and Moblins. So Link discovers that the island is known as Koholint Island, and that it's a rather strange island. As you progress through the game, Marin's desire to explore the island grows, while one of the game's revelations in the middle will have you worry for Marin, especially since the island's fate is in your hands. The kids in the village you talk to don't know the concepts of time or what's outside the island. You learn from this owl you encounter many times in the game that you cannot escape the island unless the windfish is awakened. So you go through many dungeons while the evil creatures are slowly taking over this island, from bandit moblins stealing a villager's pet, to rebellious knights overthrowing their king and taking the castle for themselves. The story is arguably the most well-written in the Zelda series. It's full of shocks and surprises that throw a curveball at what the Zelda series used to establish. I thought some of the moments from A Link to the Past were sad and shocking, but Link's Awakening does that by a tenfold. The gameplay, I have to say, is amazing. It perfectly replicates the swordplay from A Link to the Past, while giving you the option to also use your shield with the press of a button. The game features the ocarina, which has the same purpose as the flute in A Link to the Past, but you can learn warp songs and other songs that open up pathways. There's also later the ability to jump, using the magical feather found in one of the early dungeons. This is the first time Link can jump that wasn't in Zelda 2. The dungeons are like the original Legend of Zelda, except that it contains treasure chests and mid-bosses. There's also some side-scrolling sections to get from one part of the dungeon to another, but they're nothing at all like Zelda 2, I assure you, and they take like 10 seconds to travel through. Like in the past 3 games, you fight a boss at the end of every dungeon and get a heart container as a reward. These bosses are known as nightmares, and they take tougher forms every dungeon. They intend to destroy you since you are destined to get in their way of taking over the island. Exploring the dungeons and islands is also fun, and doesn't feel repetitive at all since every environment is fresh and unique. The controls are good for the most part. On the start menu, you can assign the sword and shield and other items and weapons to the A and B buttons. The select button shows you the map of Koholint Island, but you have to press start if you're in a dungeon and want to see a dungeon map. The controls are good with its customizability, but having to press start, select A and B simultaneously just to save the game is really annoying, since I found myself accessing the start menu itself more than saving. Why couldn't saving be an option in the start menu is beyond me. While I'm not crazy about how to save the game, that's the only negative aspect of the game, and it's not even a rage-inducing. The music is decent. The overworld theme is nothing more than a remix of the original Legend of Zelda theme, with a few new chords and measures here and there. The village theme is rather mundane, but listenable. The best tracks in the game are the mid-boss theme and the Ballad of the Windfish, which is sung in 8 bits by Marin and is presented in the end of the game. The music is not as good as A Link to the Past music, but it's decent. The graphics are a take-your-pick opinion. Whether they're in black and white or color, the graphics were pretty good for its time. They didn't age well, but they're still nice to look at while you're playing the game. Do you like the black and white version, or do you prefer the color DX version? Like I said, take your pick, but for its time, they're really good. Overall, I would give this game a 92 out of 100. While not as good as A Link to the Past, this is the most worthy sequel of a Zelda game, even if Princess Zelda herself is not even in it. The gameplay is well replicated from A Link to the Past, while not being afraid to try a few new things. The story is very emotional, especially towards the end. I highly recommend this game to those collecting for their Game Boy. Don't have a Game Boy? Then be sure to download it on the 3DS. You owe it to yourself to do so, especially if you're a Zelda fan or a Nintendo fan in general. It's only $4 on the 3DS, and it may be around $17 for a used cartridge, but it's definitely worth it. Thank you for watching my 4th video game review, and thank you for 15 wonderful subscriptions in just 2 weeks. With that being said, I'm going to ask the comment question from now on. What is your favorite Zelda game? Now remember, there is no right answer. All Zelda games are fantastic. Well, for the most part. Be sure to answer on the comment section below. Now, as always, I am Al Gelcher, the SideQuest Gamer, wishing you a great day. I will see you all in a few hours as I do a surprise review. No, I can't tell you, it's a surprise. Just tune in a few hours. Again, thanks for watching. And remember to stay awesome.